Welcome back to Civil Defiance. Tonight, we are not just debating an idea, we are holding a public autopsy on the greatest moral hypocrisy of the modern age. We are talking about parental regret, and tonight, I am the jury. The mainstream media whispers about the difficulty of parenting. We are going beyond difficulty. We are talking about the fundamental, agonizing, non-postpartum regret felt by a person who looks at their child, a child they may love, and knows with terrifying certainty that having them was the greatest mistake of their life. My position, the position of society, is simple. You made the choice. You are now a parent. Shut up and do your duty. To challenge this fundamental moral obligation, I have two guests who claim there is a right to regret. First, Dr. Anna Reid, a sociologist specializing in family ethics and system theory. Dr. Reid, you argue that regret is a symptom of systemic failure. Second, Mara Lynch, a vocal child-free advocate and writer, who argues that pronatalism is a form of social slavery. Dr. Reid, let's start with you. If a parent admits regret, what they are saying functionally is, I wish my child did not exist. How is that not an unforgivable act of selfishness?
Thank you, Otto. You framed the question with the exact emotional trap society uses to enforce silence. The functional statement is not, I wish my child did not exist. The functional statement is, I wish the system had not coerced me into a permanent role that destroyed my selfhood. The regret is not directed at the child. It is directed at the lost life. Regret is, sociologically, a sign of non-consensual permanency. We recognize that people regret careers, marriages, and major purchases. Why is this one choice, which is demonstrably the most life-altering, the only one where the possibility of fundamental error is denied? The Uni-Party demands we see parenthood as a mystical transformation, not a labor obligation, because if it's seen as a choice that can be fundamentally regretted, the entire structure of future taxation and consumption collapses.
Mara, you claim social slavery. I call it responsibility. You are trying to legitimize walking away from the most sacred bond. You didn't just sign a mortgage. You brought a human into existence. You advocates say, I want my old life back. Well, your old life ended the moment you decided to roll the biological dice. Why should the child, the innocent party, pay the price for the parent's arrested development?
The child is paying a price regardless, Otto. The price is being raised by a parent who is performing, who is deeply resentful, and who is living a life of spiritual agony. Authenticity is the best parenting tool. When we force a parent who feels genuine, non-postpartum regret to stay in the role and hide the truth, we create an environment steeped in subtle emotional distress, resentment, and a deep sense of falsehood. The old life isn't a selfish pursuit of martinis and travel. It's the unburdened consciousness. It's the life where you had the capacity to define your own existence. We need to recognize that the intense, relentless pressure from the Uni-Party, from the government tax incentives to the media narratives, means most parents enter this contract under a form of societal duress. A contract entered into under duress is invalid.
Dr. Reid, societal duress is a convenient excuse. People are adults. They have contraception. They have agency. Are you honestly suggesting that we should allow adults to externalize the blame for their poor decision making onto the faceless entity you call the Uni-Party? That sounds like the ultimate justification for narcissism.
It is not narcissism, Otto. It is the failure of informed consent on a grand scale. Informed consent requires a realistic understanding of outcomes. Society, media, and state policy deliberately obscure the reality of the emotional costs, the loss of identity, the psychological damage of the perpetual sacrifice. The romanticized version is the only one permitted. When millions feel regret, it's not millions of individual failures, It's a systemic failure of truth-telling perpetuated by the powers that need a steady supply of new human capital.
Mara, let's talk about permanence. You child-free advocates speak of choice, but your choice is reversible. You can always adopt or procreate later. The parent's choice is irreversible. That's the difference. You are trying to equate choosing a career with choosing a child. The regret is permanent because the child is permanent. How do you propose a right to regret that doesn't inevitably lead to the child feeling abandoned, rejected, and damaged?
The right to regret is not about abandonment. It's about legal and psychological release. The child is already damaged by the parent's required facade. If we can create pathways, socially funded, anonymous, highly supported structures, where a parent can legally and psychologically surrender their parental identity while retaining their financial and physical obligation to the child's welfare, that is better than forcing a parent to remain trapped. We need to formalize the concept of the counterfactual self. The person who regrets is constantly haunted by the life they should have had. The Uni-Party tells them to kill that part of themselves. We say, give that person a voice. Recognize that grief. If we can't offer an exit, we must offer a legalized coping mechanism that validates their loss without sacrificing the child's well-being.
Dr. Reid, legalized coping mechanisms sounds like therapeutic jargon for legitimizing flight. The moment you formalize a parent's right to grieve the life they lost, you are inherently devaluing the life they created. You are shifting the narrative from a failure of self-control to a failure of the state. It smells like a cop-out designed to make adults feel better about abdicating their duty.
No, Otto, it's about recognizing the full human spectrum. The parent who regrets is living with a fundamental schism: love for the child, profound sorrow for the self. By denying the sorrow, we force them into an emotional lie. We already have mechanisms for guardianship, adoption, and third-party care. The only thing preventing the parent from utilizing these structures is moral condemnation, which is the core enforcement tool of the Uni-Party. They want parents bound by duty, not by genuine emotional connection. If we recognize regret as a valid human tragedy, not a moral failing, we can implement compassionate systems that prioritize the child's stability, placement with a fully engaged guardian, while freeing the parent from the unsustainable emotional burden. And let me add, the Uni-Party loves this conflict. They love making it a fight between the child and the parent. It diverts all attention away from their systemic role in setting the trap in the first place. Who benefits from a large, compliant, non-dissenting population focused entirely on the consumption demands of their dependent children? The political and corporate elite. We are the collateral damage of their demographic agenda. This conversation is explosive, and it's exactly the kind of line-walking debate we need on civil defiance. We are here to challenge boundaries and spark real debate. If this episode, or any of our topics, have resonated with you, or if there's a deeply uncomfortable, highly volatile subject you think we should tackle next on civil defiance, we want to hear it. Don't be afraid of the heat. Give us the topics the established media won't touch. You can send your suggestions through the submission link on our website, https://www.civildefiance.com, or tag us on social media using #CivilDefianceTopics. Your input fuels the conversation and helps Otto continue to blow the lid off the Uni-Party's comfortable illusions. Now back to Otto.
Dr. Reid, let's get specific on the social cost. If society grants the right to regret, what happens to the social contract? You are telling people that sacrifice is optional, that duty can be negotiated, and that profound regret can be placed at the state's feet. Doesn't this create a generation of citizens who expect a perpetual safety net for every one of their personal failures? You are normalizing the abdication of responsibility.
We are normalizing human honesty, Otto. The cost of denying regret is far greater. It's widespread mental illness, generational dysfunction passed down through performance-based parenting, and a profound national dishonesty about the reality of family life. We are already paying the price in burnout, anxiety, and depression. Recognizing regret is not a safety net for failure. It is a public health necessity. The social contract is already broken by the Uni-Party's coercion. They demand sacrifice without providing support. They demand obedience to the biological mandate, but then treat struggling families as financial burdens. Our proposal is to renegotiate the contract based on truth, not based on sentimentality and lies.
Mara, let's talk about the child-free side of your argument. You frame non-parenthood as the ultimate liberty, but if the goal of humanity is continuity, if the purpose of life is to reproduce, biologically and philosophically, then aren't the child free simply opting out of the ultimate human project? Aren't you just advocating for existential escapism?
The purpose of humanity is not merely to reproduce, Otto. It is to evolve, create, and contribute. To suggest that the only valid human project is procreation is the most powerful piece of propaganda the Uni-Party has ever deployed. It restricts the definition of a worthy life. The child-free are often the most conscious, ethical actors, precisely because they resist the coercion. They recognize their own limitations, their true desires, and the immense, irreversible nature of the decision. They are not escaping, they are choosing their battlefield. By focusing their resources, intellectual capital, and time on non-parental contributions, they are offering a different, equally valid way to serve the human project, a way that doesn't involve the immense drain of forced, regretful sacrifice.
But you are both dancing around the core issue. If the right to regret is granted, then every child, upon reaching adulthood, has the right to look at their parent and say, "You regret me. You mourn the loss of your life because of me." That is a lifetime of emotional trauma. Are you willing to inflict that trauma in the name of your precious honesty?
The child already knows, Otto. Children are masters of reading emotional subtext. The performance, the hidden resentment, the quiet grief for the counterfactual self, that is all felt. The trauma isn't the truth. The trauma is the forced lie. The path to healing is through honesty, not continued deception. The only way to move forward is for the parent to say, "I regret the role I was coerced into, but I love the person you are." It creates a profound, painful, but authentic foundation for their relationship, rather than a toxic foundation of perpetual denial.
Let's talk about the Uni-Party's stake in this. Dr. Reid, you claim the state weaponizes the family. How? Give me the mechanism. It sounds like a paranoid conspiracy theory.
It is not a theory, Otto. It is demographic necessity. The family unit, as currently constructed, is the most stable source of labor, consumption, and social order. By demanding parental sacrifice, the Uni-Party ensures two things: a captive labor force. Parents, regardless of their political beliefs, must work hard and consistently to provide for their dependents. They are financially enslaved to the system. They have less time for political organizing or dissent. The intergenerational transfer of compliance. The moral obligation to parent is so great it distracts from the moral obligation to challenge the state. The emotional energy spent on regret, guilt, and the performance of happiness is emotional energy not spent on civil defiance. The family is a psychological shock absorber for political failure. When the economy crashes, parents don't riot. They work a second job. When the system becomes corrupt, they don't revolt. They focus on getting their kids through school. The Uni-Party is preserved by the forced, regretful sacrifice of millions of parents.
Mara, if you resist the mandate, you resist the system. But the people who regret did submit to the mandate. They are the failure points of the system. What is your message to the parent sitting at home right now, consumed by that permanent aching regret? What is the act of civil defiance they can perform right now, short of abandonment?
Your first act of civil defiance is to mourn. Give yourself permission to mourn the life you lost. Stop performing for the neighbors, the family, and the school board. That performance is your enslavement. The Uni-Party demands that you appear whole. Your defiance is to acknowledge the shattered reality. Second, seek non-judgmental community. The internet has provided a necessary lifeline where parents can anonymously confess this truth without fear of losing their job or their child. This sharing of authentic grief is the beginning of the counter-movement against the pronatalist cult. You are not alone. You are a victim of a systemic, loving lie.
But isn't this movement, Dr. Reid, simply a call for the state to provide an escape route for those who can't handle the weight of their own decisions? You are asking the political system you despise, the Uni-Party, to bail out personal failure. That's not defiance, that's dependency.
No, it is a demand for accountability from the system that intentionally obfuscated the truth of the burden. This system created the trap, a compassionate off-ramp that secures the child's future while releasing the parent from the unsustainable role. This isn't dependency, it's a structural correction. The defiance is enforcing the system to confront the human cost of its own demographic avarice. The only way to achieve true liberty in this decision is to recognize that all choices, even the sacred ones, are subject to human error, and that error must be accommodated without destroying the innocent or enslaving the responsible adult.
We have run out of time, and I am still not convinced. Your argument, Dr. Reid, is that the Uni-Party trapped them. Your argument, Mara, is that they should be allowed to mourn their lost self. My argument remains. You made the choice. The child is the consequence. The duty is non-negotiable. But I must concede this point. The silence, the shame, and the coercion you describe are undeniably real. The sheer scale of internalized regret suggests that this is not an issue of personal failure, but a systemic trauma inflicted by a culture that demands sacrifice under the pretense of love. You have identified the most effective psychological weapon in the Uni-Party's arsenal, the biological mandate. Here is my final challenge to both of you and to the audience. Until society accepts that the most profound human act is subject to the same regret as any other, we are all living under a tyranny of sentimentality. The only way to win this war is to be willing to be called the monster. Dr. Reid, Mara, thank you for being willing to face the judgment of the public and the hostility of this host. You have certainly given the listeners of Civil Defiance something they will not forget. Be honest, be defiant, be free.